Okay, here's one of the things that's been going on, and this has consistently been a problem for a very long time. People do not know what inflation is and does not know how it works. They are still stuck on this idea that print money equals inflation. And therefore, anytime the government prints money is therefore just making inflation for no reason. Because anything the capitalist class wants to do is just screw up the economy for no reason and hurt themselves. But I digress. The main point of it is here right now in Canada. Pierre Poilievre is set to be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, and he is constantly spouting that the Bank of Canada just printed money for the sake of whatever conspiracy theory he has in his head about it, and that the printing of money is automatically what causes inflation. Okay, let me explain this. Printing money is not the source of inflation. Theoretically, if you just printed a ton of money for no reason, you could cause inflation. Inflation is when you have commodities. When you have a particular collection of commodities, it's called a basket of commodities. There are ones that are specifically collected into this basket, and their prices are what measure what inflation is. If the prices of those commodities increase, then you have inflation. If they decrease, you have deflation. Okay? Inflation is not when money's printed. Inflation is when prices increase. Now, I really wish people would get that through their head, because what they're repeating is a whole bunch of BS that was created by Milton Friedman and the quantity theory of money, which has since been ridiculously disproven. His theory is horribly flawed beyond reason, etc. So, Poilievre is pushing his complete nonsense that the Bank of Canada, the Central Bank of Canada, just prints money and causes inflation. That's not what happens. Now, if this was true, and I'm going to try not to waste too much time on this, why was inflation in the 70s the opposite of what's happening now? The money supply expanded after there was inflation. Situation in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia cuts the global oil supply by 7%. The price of everything goes up because the cost of fuel is attached to everything, because it's moving everything. So what happened was the price of everything went up because companies had to go out and borrow more money to meet the increased cost in fuel for transportation. The increased cost of transportation also increased household budgets, who then had to go out and borrow money to meet their new increased cost for fuel. That borrowing increased the money supply, but the increase in prices came before the money was borrowed. So inflation happened before the money supply was expanded. So by this logic, this should not have been able to happen, because printing money is inflation. Printing money is not inflation, and I fucking wish people would just stop claiming this. You can get inflation when your economy severely contracts, like happened with Zimbabwe. Their economy severely contracted because of all the companies that pulled out of the country, and those that normally bought things from Zimbabwe stopped buying them. So there was a huge contraction of the economy basically overnight. The same thing happened in Venezuela. Because of the sanctions on the country, there was a severe contraction of the economy, and now the amount of money in the system expanded, was greater than the need for it. And that's the point here. You have to have a balance of the amount of money in the system to facilitate the exchange of goods and services. If there's too much, then you can have inflation. If you have a sudden contraction of the economy, then you would have too much, and you have to take money out of the system. The Weimar Republic in Germany was caused by printing too much money because of demands for reparations for the First World War. So they had to keep endlessly printing money to buy other currencies to pay off those reparations. So in that case, it was from printing too much money. So, it's that can cause it, but that is not what inflation is. Now, very seriously, the difference. Pierre Poilievre, who, by the way, is one of the most horrid human beings who's ever run for Canadian Parliament. He's basically like America bad kind of thing. Like, this is the politician that you would find in America. To be more specific, he keeps lying about this inflation, so he's intentionally spreading misinformation, or unless he thinks he's right, in which case he's a fool. He's either a liar or a fool. Okay. Now, as a result, the Bank of Canada had to come out and explain what was going on, what they did, because he was putting so much misinformation out. Now, the Bank of Canada said that this pandemic has not been like others. So the measures that they took to deal with this is they bought bonds to support the economy. This is not the same thing as printing money. They say they bought existing government bonds on the open market. What this did was help unblock frozen markets at the start of the pandemic. This allowed there to be more access to funding that households had to borrow, businesses had to borrow, the government had to borrow in order to deal with the increased costs related to COVID. Buying bonds also pulled down interest rates across the economy. This lowered the cost of borrowing and helped Canadians borrow more money, that being personal, business, or government. They did not print money to pay for the bonds. They bought the bonds with settlement balances, a kind of central bank reserve, not with banknotes, meaning they actually didn't print money at all. But Poilievre keeps claiming that they did, and this is a significant difference because they used settlement balances. Settlement balances don't permanently add money to the money supply. They can remove those reserves from the system. And they've already begun doing that. People don't understand what quantitative easing actually is. It's not when you endlessly print money. It is important to understand the difference between what actually is and what some scumbag is lying about publicly for his own political benefit. So I've included a link in the description that will go to explaining this. Now, I am not defending the Bank of Canada because you're secretly part, and then this proves that the government is secretly communist or some kind of paranoid nonsense, idiotic paranoid nonsense like that. I am defending how economics works. You can disagree with a policy, as I disagree with the entire capitalist system, but you can't go around lying about what something is in order to think you got somebody. Okay? If you don't like apples and you prefer oranges, it doesn't do any good to lie about what apples are. You see what I mean? So please go to the link in the description, particularly if you're Canadian, or if you just want to learn in general about that, because economics is a very complicated subject, and it's full of a ton of misinformation, probably more than history is. So go to that link, learn more, and keep watching, rate, comment, subscribe.
Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.